Hi, guys. I'm Mark Valenti from CTREIA. I think most of you probably know who I am. I'm here with Alan Cowgill. Alan is one of the foremost gurus in real estate investing today. We're going to have a very special weekend of not just education, but entertainment late April of 2025. Alan and Andy Heller have two separate programs, but at some point in their careers, they realized how much the two of them dovetail with each other. And I'm telling you guys, I know both of them. The information they got is just unbelievable. And when you put the two together, you can't lose. So I'm going to ask Alan to kind of introduce himself and basically, Alan, tell us how you got started, what what you're doing now, what your expertise is now, what you're focusing on.
Okay, sounds great. I was out in the corporate world. My whole goal was to climb that corporate ladder, and and I was successful. I was successful. In fact, I moved plants for companies. The last company I was with was Honeywell, and I was with them for 17 and a half years. And those flashing lights that you see going over at night, that was my department. And so I did acquisitions in Europe and was very successful. And what happened was um, the company, in fact, different companies that I was with, put me in charge of implementation programs. And the last one I was with was a multi-million dollar multi-state. In fact, one of the states was your state, um, and the multi-plant, and just amazing. And during those implementation programs, I was the one that headed them up. And one year I got a bonus where the rest of the folks didn't, and so it was really going good. The problem of it is, in my personal life, it wasn't so hot. Um, I was living paycheck to paycheck. I was living in a two-bedroom apartment, and I had this old car that my mom actually had given me. And what happened was one night on a first date, I uh, I stopped in front of the apartment complex to walk this lady up to the door, and I heard something. I turned around and looked, and my car had burst into flames. So it's like,
I shouldn't laugh about that, but
well, I get a laugh.
good thing she wasn't in the car.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, the uh, the thing of it is, when I say this to a group, like your group, that somebody in the back row will say, hot date. It was more like first and last date. So, so just it kept me down. It kept me frustrated. Didn't know how to, dig out of this problem that I had of paycheck to paycheck. And I decided to invest, but I didn't know how. And so I looked at franchises. Well, that was out of the question. And so my way of doing this is I had my whole federal tax return. I plunked it down on lottery tickets, and so it lost on every ticket. Kept me broke, kept me frustrated, not knowing what to do. And one night I couldn't sleep. 2 o'clock in the morning, I woke up and I started to channel surf, and I hit one of these real estate infomercials, and it got my attention. And I thought maybe this is the answer for me. And so I picked up that phone, I ordered that home study system, and I became enthralled with real estate. Yeah, that year I got two properties, the next year five, then 18. I've done hundreds of transactions since that point in time. And so that's how I got launched in this business. That was a start.
Oh, that's great. What
Yeah.
about now? I know you've focused in on certain aspects of real estate investing. What would you say your specialty is?
I'm known all over the nation for and in Canada for private lending, how to borrow money from private individuals. Okay. What happened was I didn't have any inkling to be a speaker. All I wanted to do is buy and sell real estate. But I was at an event in Las Vegas, and the trainer went around the room and he said, "What are you doing different? What are you doing different? What are you doing different?" He's trying to have everybody contribute on what they were doing. And I was about three quarters of the way through the attendance, And when he got to me, I was right on the aisle, and he said, "What are you doing different?" And I said, "Well, I'm working on private lenders." And he slapped the table. He said, "That's great, Alan. You're speaking in Cashiers, North Carolina next month." I about fell through the floor. I didn't want to speak anywhere. All I wanted to do is buy and sell houses. Well, I struggled with it, whether I was going to go to the event or not, but it was free to me because I was going to speak. And it was a 3-day event. And I sat in the back row and I kept my head down, and I didn't want eye contact with the speaker, same guy, because I didn't want to speak. But right before lunch on day 3, he said, "Alan, come on up here and see what you got." Well, I had those back then, those vellums, the plastic ones, and I went up and I gave a presentation, and I noticed people are taking notes. And by the time I was done, they started asking me questions, and then somebody took me out to lunch, and there was 3 carloads taking me out to lunch. They see me at the head of the table. They asked more questions. They took more notes. Somebody bought my lunch. I thought, this is a good day. I got back to the afternoon session. I pulled into the parking lot, and some guy comes running up. He said, "Alan, I want to buy your slides." I about fell through the floor. I said, "My slides aren't for sale." He got out his checkbook, wrote a checkbook. I gave him my slides. He gave, he gave me a check. I walked up the door, and then a lady there says, "Alan, I want to buy your slides." I said, "Well, somebody just bought them out in the parking lot." She said, "That's okay. Send me some." Wrote me another check. I walked in, and some guy comes up, running up all out of breath. He said, "Alan, I want to buy your slides." And by then I knew something was going on. I just didn't know what to do with it. The guy that was running the show got me over in the corner. He said, "You got to speak." And the next month, imagine this, next month in front of 150 folks, I was teaching people how to get private money lenders, and it hadn't stopped since. It just was amazing. And then along the way, I realized that with real estate investing, it's like a football game, where you have the fundamentals, the blocking and the tackling and all that, but you also have the rule book. And so what I did was I hired an SEC attorney to get me the rules. I didn't know what was out there. And he came back and said, "Well, it's very easy. There is some rules. You just need to follow them. And they're very simple." So I turned him loose on the whole nation and Canada. And so that sets me apart out there from other speakers, because I not only have the fundamentals of how to get private money, but also the rule book. Okay. So just that's where I came from on that.
Oh, that's great.
That's my specialty.
I'll tell you, you mentioning the SEC and the rule book, I've run into some people that just go around asking people for money. They want to pool the money, and they don't understand there are rules that
Right.
you have to abide by. And, they all think, "Oh, I won't get in any trouble." Well, it's great when everything works out right. But when something goes wrong, if you didn't follow the rules, you could have a big problem. And I appreciate the fact that that's one of the things that you cover in your presentations.
I
But
do.
but what kind of deals, Alan, have you done with private lending? What do you find are some of the better ways of using private lending?
Okay. Well, hard money lenders, like, I talk about my mom, like private lenders versus hard money lenders. Hard money lenders, they set the rules. Well, my students, what happens with them is if they want to have a second stream of income, they could become a hard money lender and set up a business, okay, and keep the business that they got in that. One of the things that might surprise you is that, who do you think wants me to teach out in California? It's movie producers.
Really?
They want my home study system. It's just I got a guy right now that's wanting to buy notes, be a note buyer, and so we were emailing back and forth here last week. So just a myriad of different things. I before COVID, here in Ohio, uh, they had a concert ready to go, and because of COVID, they couldn't do that. Okay, so it's just a myriad of doing it. I'll tell you what, this is going to be really odd. Is what people can buy their own houses. That's not odd with private money. But the other thing is some of my students, they get they go to a credit card company that has a lot of people that's not paying them. And what happens is my students will buy those at pennies on the dollar. and then they go back out and try to have people, uh, find people, and they, you know, pay for what they didn't have ahead of time. So you can do a myriad of different things. Just imagine just all the things you could have a boutique. I mean, it goes on and on what you can do with private money. Now, what I like to do, I buy and fix houses, and that's what I do. So, you know, that's what I've done all my life. So yeah, but it's
So,
out there.
so your first private lender was,
My mom, my mom, what had happened was I'm coming up through the real estate, and what happens was I heard this thing about hard money lenders and private lenders. I thought they were the same, but I found out hard money lenders set the rules, but with private lenders, I could set the rules. And so I went in, I sat down with my mom. Now, what happened to mom was her and dad had a farm. And when dad passed away, mom sold the farm and she came into money, and she didn't know what to do with the money. And she finally figured out that she could have money on a bank certificate of deposit. She would go 45 minutes to get a few pennies more on a bank CD. That's how desperate mom was to get a high rate of return, just to squeeze every dime out of this. Well, I sit down at the table with mom, kitchen table, and I said, look, you're getting a poultry low rate of return with a bank CD. I'll pay you 3, 4, 5 times more than that. And she jumped for joy, and she became my first private lender. And then later on that year, I got another private lender. And one of the things that happens is with this private lending is that like the husband, he might loan money to you, but then later on the wife will loan money and the kids will loan money. And so one private lender will bring you two can bring you four. And have you ever at a bank bring you more banks? That don't happen. But with private lenders, these miniature banks, and sometimes pretty big banks, um, start loaning you money. So it's
that's
just,
interesting.
isn't that something?
Yeah.
Yeah, it happens maybe about 30% of the time. That somebody else will come on in because they know and they want to get a high rate of return. So it's a win-win.
So do you find most of your lenders come back and will continue loaning you the money, or what happens if one of your lenders quits on you?
Well, good question. Typically they're in. As long as you want them in, they're in. But what will happen then is if they have a life change, then they got to have that money back. Okay. So for an example, I had a private lender and he had two daughters and they're twins, and he was saving up money for them to go to college. And so with me for a few years, and then the girls went to college and he needed to get his money back. And so it's very simple. The way this works is because all you have to do is just bring in another private lender and pay off the first private lender, and life goes on. I do that within a week. I can have one lender want their money back. I can call up another lender, and they're chomping at the bit because they want to get a high rate of return and just zip it right out. In Ohio here, we could do attorneys and things like that. In every state, they can do this. So yeah, it's very simple, very simple. It's a win-win.
Yeah, that's great. So, as far as somebody saying to you, "Hey, I want to be in on this." Now, you may or may not have a deal at the time, and you're looking for a deal. You find something, and then do they back out on you?
It's rare. I'll tell you what I've experienced is if the money is coming from a 401k, okay, and they say yes, that they're going to loan you money, you're in. You're in. I mean, that's like 99% of the time they're in. All right. It was coming out of 401k. Now, if it is someone that has a self-directed IRA, that maybe came off of 401k, then what happens is about 85%, if they say yes, they're in. But every now and then there'll be one person out there that says yes, and then they don't move the money. Okay. So, bank CDs, they're in. 401k, self-directed IRAs, that things are pretty good, and they're in our favor 85% of the time. but there's about 15% in there that they'll back out. Pretty
So,
interesting, isn't it? It's in our favor,
yeah,
right? It's a
yeah. And
win-win.
there's a ton of money floating around out there.
You aren't kidding. And
So,
that people are want a high rate of return, and this is a great way to do it.
yeah. Um, you being the silver fox now is
Is that a cut on my hair?
looking back on your career, is there anything that you look back on and say, yeah, I wish I had done something a little differently than that?
Um, Early on, yeah, I wish I'd have got private money quicker. I went years before I got into that. Okay. So, that would be, I started out with a RIA group in town. I didn't even know how to spell RIA groups. Okay. Back then. I had one in town and I became a board member in time. But, but what happened was, I didn't know they had all these, 4-day boot camps and things like that. So I learned that over time, and that made a huge difference in my life and really gave me a jump on this business. Okay, and the RIA groups are awesome, and so it's great. One of the things that happened to me was I woke up one morning. It was August. I can't tell you the year. I can't remember. But it was August where I woke up and I had so much private money I couldn't spend it all. I want you to imagine that.
God.
I want you to imagine that because what had happened was I had tapped into 401k money. Okay, that someone that has quit, retired, or gotten laid off, they can roll that money over into a self-directed IRA. Okay, and so I had a massive amount of money coming in, and it just kept coming in and coming in. And I decided that what I needed to do was go out and buy more properties with the money. And so I hired a guy to help me out. We sat down at a restaurant, we talked, and I knew the guy ahead of time, and him and I really started to get a lot of properties. It was that year from September when I hired him to Christmas. We did 28 properties, and then from New Year's to August, it was another 48. It was 21 and 48. That's what it was. 21 and 48. Did 69 houses in less than a year.
Nice, nice.
That's yeah.
So with all these lenders, um, and you have more lenders than you have property when you run into that
Yeah.
unfortunate situation.
Yeah.
How do you handle, uh, like say I've got 123 Main Street and I'm going to do some, I'm going to buy it and do some rehab work on it. Do you pool of lenders or one lender per house? How do you do that?
Well, I like one lender per house, and if it's more lenders, if I need more money on the property, I bring in another lender and I stack them up. Higher dollar amount lender gets first mortgage, second lender, second mortgage, just stack them up. Right? Of course, the one on the 73rd position isn't getting very happy, but just a joke. But yeah, yeah. But that's what you do. You stack up the mortgages.
Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah,
Good,
it's
good.
simple. Yeah,
Well, I'll tell you, Alan, I'm looking forward to this weekend in April. It's the end of April. Um, between you and Andy, I think this is going to be one of the best events that we ever put on. And for the people listening, uh, I'm going to be giving you more information as time goes along. Um, this is something with the new administration coming in. I'm sure there's going to be some changes to the market. We
yeah,
don't know all of what it's going to be, but right now, when we're seeing the discrepancies between what people can afford and the price of houses, and a lot of people not being able to pay their mortgages, man, this could be an explosion in the real estate market.
definitely, definitely. We need to be prepared for that. Yeah,
Yep.
no question about it. The nice thing about it is Andy and I. What happens is we fit in what we teach like a hand in glove. He teaches what he does on how to do different deals, and I bring in the money part of this. And we recognized one day a few years ago that we had something that we needed to teach together. So this will rock. I mean, it's a two-day event. It's going to rock. So
It's
yeah.
awesome. We're still working on a hotel for that weekend. We want to make sure, I'm figuring we got triple digit numbers of people coming, so we need a pretty good sized room.
Yep.
And I'm really looking forward to this.
Yeah.
Can't
I
wait for it. It's going to be great. It's going
Yeah,
to be
yeah.
great.
You guys, I've spoke for you guys before. You guys do great events. This is going to be outstanding. It's going
Yeah,
to, it'll
this is
rock.
going to be right. This is going to be right up there near the top. So
You
I
got it.
appreciate your time, Alan. You have
Yeah.
a great rest of the day, and
Yep.
I will talk to you soon.
To your wealth. Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.